Hi, and welcome to this episode. I'm Kristina, the host and ADHD coach. I'm here with the very lovely Melanie Fixes Mindsets, who I will say, disclosure, is currently my coach. At the time of this recording, we only have 1 week left. Said
We
after
have 1 week
6 months of working
left.
together. Yeah. And I wanted to take this time to bring Melanie on the podcast to talk about neurodivergence, business, and all sorts of other things that she's phenomenal at. I've had a very transformative, that's the best word I can say, time with her. And I first wanted to start off if you could also introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. My name is Melanie Branch, and I am the business mindset coach for NeuroSpicy female entrepreneurs who are really ready to access success on their own terms. And, you and I have worked together for a long period of time in coaching and at the NeuroSpicy Academy, where I am the second in command, and Kristina with the blue hair, which I always call her around you because
Yeah.
you are Kristina now with the purple hair. So
Right.
I really have made it my mission to enable women with a neurodivergent neurotype or a
Mhm.
different sort of, misfit entrepreneur neurotype. We're playing around with that idea too at the NeuroSpicy
Yeah.
Academy. Really just understand what they need and how they can shine and how they can be their best, and then design their life and business around that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yes, we hang out a lot of the day in the NeuroSpicy Academy. I am also a member there, and it's been wonderful to get that type of business support in ways that make sense for my brain as an ADHDer and as somebody that has dyslexia too. And I know you and I talk about that sometimes as well. Dyslexia comes into play in many different ways. I would also love to hear about your neurodivergent journey because yours didn't start in elementary school with being told or informed or supported. It looks a little different. Would you share what that looked like?
I would be happy to share that with you. Yes. I did not find out that I had ADHD until my early 20s, when I
Mm-hmm.
had to fight very, very hard and advocate for myself after I had both of my kids. My kids are
Mm-hmm.
20 months apart. I am a Navy wife. I had them at 22 and 23 years old.
Yeah.
And all of my quote unquote systems fell apart. I couldn't keep up anymore. And my family members, I have a couple family members that are diagnosed ADHD. So I was like, this has got to be it. This just has to be it. And that was back before Google was really a big thing and whatnot. Cause it was 15 some odd years ago, 15 years ago. So I really just went into my general practitioner and said, hey, I don't think it's anxiety. I don't think it's depression. This is why I think that. I've been taking these meds for anxiety and depression, and I still have all these problems. And I just think I think it's ADHD. Will you just send me somewhere for that? And so I went to the psychiatrist. Took the tests. They were like, oh yeah, raging ADHD. And I said, okay, great. Now what? Can you fix me? And they're like, no, here's a pill. You'll be fine now.
Right.
That wasn't the case.
And then
So, over those 15 years, I really started learning as much as I could about ADHD in particular. And then when the pandemic hit,
mm-hmm.
and the world stopped and my mom died and all sorts of things went crazy and wild and off the rails a little bit, I discovered TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and the algorithms of life kicked in as well.
Yes.
And I discovered that I am not only ADHD, but I'm also a PDA autistic, which is pathological demand avoidance, but we hate that name. I like
We do not like
persistent
that.
drive
No.
for autonomy. And I am dyslexic. I
Mm-hmm.
have dyscalculia. I have PCOS, PMDD, endometriosis, mast cell activation syndrome, POTS, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and a little sprinkle of CPTSD on the top as well. So when it
Just for good
comes
measure.
to, just for good
Yeah.
measure, why not,
Yeah.
right? So really understanding the physical manifestation of neurodivergence
Mm-hmm.
has become a special interest in me as well, because especially if you're a woman or an AFAB human being and you know you have ADHD, you suspect autism, both. We also know that the numbers point to you most likely have ADHD and autism. It's very rare to have them separately, but we don't have to go into any of that right now. So I really like to help women understand all of the support that they need to thrive and feel their best, because it's not just here's a stimulant medication, you'll be fine.
Right. Do you think that's a common misconception amongst ADHDers when they find out they have ADHD, especially for late diagnosed?
They definitely don't hand you a guide or
Manual?
a handbook and say, here you go, this is everything you're going to need. And I know from my experience that has been echoed to me by a lot of people that I work with. The mindset was you have anxiety and depression. So
Right.
here are pills, those will go
Same.
away. You won't need them anymore. That won't be
That's
your
right.
standard operating system.
Right.
But when you find out it's neurodivergence, ADHD, and autism, that is your standard operating
That's
system.
right.
So you have to figure out how to accommodate that in this world that we live in.
And one of the perks of having ADHD is sometimes you forget stories that people tell you, and it's like you're listening to it again for the first time. And I had that moment just now because I'm like, oh, yeah, you and I have very similar stories when it comes to 2020, a parent died, embracing your neurodivergence, going out on business on your own, which is literally my story. The only difference here is that my father died in November 2021. And I went through a divorce and I went out on my own. And so there's a lot of similarities. And one of the reasons I was so attracted to you to work with is because I saw in you your being yourself. So I also found TikTok during the pandemic, as an elder millennial does, or did, I guess. And I'm still on there
so
now.
True.
And
it's
the
so
first,
true.
yeah. And the first TikTok I posted went viral because why not? Because why not? Viral in my terms is like 180,000 views.
I think viral is 5K plus.
I agree. I don't disagree, especially if we've got niches, right?
Yes.
So our niche, I agree. And so I decided at that point, I was like, well, I guess I'm here now. And immediately my algorithm, like yours, algorithmed and was like, you are neurodivergent, female, LGBTQ. Like, we're talking like within 30 minutes. It already had me picked. Like, you're a parent, you have all these things. So when you came across my For You page, which if anybody listening does not have TikTok and you don't know what FYP or For You page means, it basically is a stream in TikTok that you can click over to. And they're basically saying, based on your activity and what we know about you and your behaviors, you would find these creators and this content, you would like it.
Yes.
Maybe not, you would like it. So the algorithm, I found you on TikTok, engaged with you on a live. So you had a live video going and then the rest is history.
Yes.
And so one of the things I found so valuable working with you is learning to embrace the ADHD that I have and the neurodivergence brain. And a lot of what I work with my clients is very similar. It's just from a different perspective, working with corporate or entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs. But with you, it's also like, well, what does your spirit really need right now? What does Kristina need? So would you be open to talking a little bit about how you figured out systems for yourself? Like
yes,
with comorbidities, those things will impact you day to day.
So many. Well, back in April of 2020, when my mom died after her 18-month battle with stage 4 head and neck cancer, and I just went, oh, this weight is off my shoulders. What role am I supposed to play? What are you talking about? Okay. So pressure's off. I can just go do what I want to do. My spirit guides made themselves abundantly clear to me. And the fact that I am a healer made itself abundantly clear to me. And that the work I had been doing so I started working on mindset in 2018 while I was still working at a very busy restaurant and whatnot, because I was told by my GM that I was the second most negative person in that big, gigantic restaurant. And I said, oh shit, I got to really do some work here because I thought I was pleasant. But now we know, looking back on it, that it was a very dysfunctional, unhealthy work environment, as so many restaurants are. But, it really set me up for success long term. So we can only bitch about it so much. But understanding the through line, if you will, of all of the trauma that I had been through since childhood, my relationships with my parents and my sibling and my extended family and my abilities my whole life, and the way that I can be so off-putting to some people, the way I can see right through some people that most people don't and whatnot, and trying to put it all together. I was like, oh, so I'm an energy healer. I have a very strong connection with my spirit team. My spirit team is very much involved in letting me know who I'm going to work with, but not when, never when, just who, which is another reason that I do love social media so much, is because, you know, when I was scrolling social media and you came across my feed, they went them. And that's what I hear every time, them. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm going to work with that person. I go, yep. And I go, how? And they go, I'm not going to tell you that. That would take all the fun out of it. And I said, well, when? I'm not going to tell you that. That'll take all the fun out of it. Just go do your thing. Okay, sounds great. So I really just said, if this is what it is, I'm going to stop fighting it, and I'm going to go full on and really listen to my inner guidance, my higher self, my spirit guides, the universe, God, whatever it is you want to call it, right? We all identify with something.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to like see where this goes, and understanding that my energy did not have to be at a 10 every single day for me to be valuable and lovable and productive was the biggest breakthrough. I was like, oh shit, you mean I can actually do some stuff while I'm laying in bed?
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. And then that really opened the doors to me understanding disabilities and chronic illnesses. And the fact that I could, in fact, be a chronically ill, disabled person and still be productive and still be motivated and still be fantastic and still be lovely. But I needed to treat my mind and my body better.
You needed to treat your mind and your body better. And based on the world we're living in, was that difficult?
Yeah,
Is that
because
difficult?
you're a mom, you're a woman,
Yeah.
you're a wife, you're a partner, you're a business owner, you're a friend, you're a daughter, you're a sister. You got to be everything to everyone. And it doesn't leave a lot of time and energy to take care of yourself.
Yeah. I had a moment when I was learning to like care for myself where I had an entire week where I kind of did not have a lot of work meetings. I didn't have a lot of deadlines going on. And I realized my week was full. And I was sitting here and I was like, oh my gosh, it could be it is sometimes a full-time job to take care of our needs.
Yes.
And people are out here with full-time jobs, volunteering with kids, or even without. Heaven forbid they have a social life and have friends and activities and hobbies they enjoy.
Yep.
And I don't think that we give enough credit to the motivation that people with disabilities have to succeed in the world.
Yes. Yep. And disability's really gotten such a bad rap, right? You know, we just, especially here in America, you picture a disabled person just getting their social security check, $600 a month, and trying to live off the government. It's like, that is not the case. That is what powers that be would like us all to think.
Right.
Because, you know, we can't deviate from the norm and the standard that is capitalism and patriarchy in this country and many others. So when we really think about, I have to do things differently if I want a different outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So finding out what those things were, again, became my mission, right? So I really like the idea of an experiment, or, you know, do it for the memoir, that sort of thing. Like, we won't know unless we try it. And they say that the only thing people regret on their deathbed is the things they didn't do.
And I will say I haven't been on my own deathbed, but I was next to my dad when they were on theirs. And that's exactly what went through their mind. I quit my job in 2021, but that January 2021, I decided that I was going to go in business for myself, saved money, gave myself 3 months to figure that out. I've always knew my calling was to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And is this a forever call? I don't know. But I always knew that it was going to happen. And my dad, when he was literally dying, sat there, and it was fast and quick. It came really suddenly. And he had worked his entire life to retire so he could go off and hike the Appalachian Trail. And then he wanted to hike in Europe, and he wanted to do all these things. And then he got pancreatic cancer. It ate his body alive and he died. And guess what? He wasn't able to do any of those things.
Yep.
That's what he regrets. And that's what he did regret when he was dying. And it's true. I mean, I've seen that firsthand. And I think that's important when we think about mindset, when we think about what we want to achieve. And my worth is not connected to my productivity was a big, I knew that in my brain, but feeling it in my heart, working with you was a part of that, is very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very different. You know, really understanding that, you know, consistency, and there's a really great
that word.
It's so triggering, isn't it? There's a really great like infographic that's floating around Instagram right now that I keep seeing. And I take note. I understand what you're trying to get across, but it shows you like 10 cups with green liquid in it. Right. And it's 10 cups that are full to the top. Right. And it's what we think consistency is. And then underneath it, it's 10 cups with a little bit and a lot and a little bit and a lot. And it's just got to, you know, it's literally just showing up every day and saying, what am I capable of doing today? What is my capacity? And how can I honor that?
Yes. Yep. Boom. That is the secret. It's not doing the exact same thing. It's not having this regimented 4:30 in the morning wake up, which for some people is great. There's always that disclaimer. And it's not for everybody. Like you're not going to get up at 4:30, do your devotion, go through a 45-minute exercise, make a clean breakfast for your kids and yourself and your spouse, take them to like, that's a lot of times is unattainable for people, especially who have disabilities, especially who are neurodivergent.
Yep.
And so getting to that space was so hard.
Yep.
And now being in this space, I don't know where else I would be.
Yeah. I mean, if I reflect back on my 37 years on this planet to all of the times that I spent hours, usually late into the night, creating the perfect routine that was going to solve all of my problems. Right. And I was going to wake up at 5 a.m. and I was going to exercise and I was going to eat clean and I was going to take my supplements and I was going to take my meds and I was going to do this. And I was going to clean the house and I was going to work for 8 hours and I was going to do this and I was going to do that. Blah, 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 blah. And you're lucky if you even do it for one day, let alone the rest of your life. What are we're thinking we're going to go from spinning out and having no control over everything that's happening in our life to perfection overnight.
Yeah. I call those fantasy goals with my clients. Yeah. It's like, we think that our lifestyle, we're going to wake up tomorrow and our complete lifestyle should be able to be changing like that. Not even.
Just not possible. Absolutely.
So what are some things that you do for yourself in order to get there, or you help your clients do in order to achieve their goals? I mean, I'm a really good example.
Really good example.
Let's be honest. I don't even feel like that's bragging. It's like, no, let's legit look at the numbers.
I don't think bragging is even real. And if it is real, I would encourage everyone to do it, because how is anybody going to know unless you fucking tell them?
I agree. And so that's a part of my mindset work that I worked on with you when it comes to sales, when it comes to acknowledging my amazing skills that I have, when it comes to really digging deep and telling people what I have to offer. And if they don't like it, I'm not going to work with them.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to convince somebody who is determined not to understand me. Is that your phrase that you like to use?
Committed to misunderstanding me.
Committed to misunderstanding me. Yeah. I had one sales call one time, and I'm sure I told you about it months ago, where they were challenging everything I said. And it wasn't in a way where they were trying to understand. And they were wanting clarification and they were engaged. We were engaged in a conversation. They were determined to shoot me down for everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't going to work, is what I said about halfway through. And they were scoffing at me. They were just like, what? And I was like, this is really meant to be an exchange, not. And they're like, well, you need to be able to tolerate, quote unquote, like, being challenged. I was like, I can handle being challenged.
Yeah.
I know this works.
Yeah. I also started my own business, so I don't have to work with assholes anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for nothing.
Somebody else I follow, her name is Stephanie. She does ADHD events for entrepreneurs. And one of her values is we don't work with dicks.
Yeah.
Or values or something like that's literally
true.
Yeah. Absolutely.
True.
I got sidetracked there. What
You asked me, oh, what are some of the things that I recommend my clients do? First and foremost,
yeah.
it's boring, but you have to track your energy flows. You have to track the ups and downs. I say a good 60 days worth of data on how, and this is the only thing I want you to ask yourself. I have a thing called an energy optimization guide that you can use if you want, but literally just when you wake up in the morning, say, how do I feel? How much sleep did I get? And write it down somewhere. Then in the middle of the day, how do I feel? How much energy do I have? What did I eat? You know, really just these physical things that we can track. And then at nighttime, how do I feel? What did I do today? Right. So we want about 60 days worth of that, where we can now look at the data, because thank God we are very good with pattern recognition as neurodivergent human beings. And this is not a difficult thing. It's difficult to get you to value this quiet moment 3 times a day of like, how am I doing? Let me check in with myself, because we have been so detached from our physical body and our well-being, especially if you have chronic illnesses that cause pain. I would love to escape the pain as much as possible. And it's not easy to like check in and say, oh shit, my hips are really bothering me today. Or, oh shit, I really didn't get good sleep last night. But once we get that 60 days of data, we can really start to see where the naps have to happen. Why do the naps have to happen? What foods are not being very good to us, right? As a person with mast cell activation syndrome, I am allergic to things that I never used to be allergic to. I cannot touch peanuts without getting a huge flare of hives all over my body and thoughts of impending doom, right? So if it weren't for tracking my energy, I wouldn't have realized all of this stuff, right? If it weren't for researching what all of these physical manifestations / comorbidities of neurodivergence are, I wouldn't know that the first mile of my walks that I started taking to get back control of my health, that first mile of my walk, my brain was screaming at me, turn around. What if you break your ankle when you're 3 miles away from home? What if you get abducted? La, 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 la. The whole first mile. And I just had to push myself through it because, you know, runners say, not that I'm a runner, I'm a walker for sure, but runners tell you that first mile lies, right? So we really have to have the mindset before we can go after anything else. Because if your mindset is, I want to feel as good as freaking possible, then we can really figure out what's going to make that happen.
And I think you brought up something really important, which is when you're going through something, you're going to be uncomfortable when you're doing something new.
Yes.
And we, as people with neurodivergence, typically most people have a comorbidity or they experience all sorts of other things. We're used to being uncomfortable. And so adding on another layer of discomfort sometimes is fine. Like we're like, I'm used to this, I can push through. However, the other side of that is like one more thing that I'm uncomfortable about. So when I think about pushing through, and it's not even pushing through really, it's acknowledging your goal in my mind. Now, after working with my mindset with you, it's acknowledging the goal I want to do and then recognizing what might be uncomfortable about it. And saying that out loud or writing it down and processing it. It's like, oh, I'm not scared of this anymore because now I'm mentally prepared. I know this is coming. And I mean, the scariest part is doing it and not knowing what the discomfort's going to be.
There's 2 things that really help me push through. The first one is neurodivergent people are better at handling pain than they are discomfort.
Isn't that wild?
So if I break a toe, I'm going to be fine. But if I'm getting a blister, y'all are going to hear about it. It's not going to be good. And then the second thing, I saw another creator talk about this pretty recently. I would love to create them, but I didn't take notes. Didn't take notes. That's strange. You know, I'm always taking notes. Anyways, he said, it's hard to be fat and it's hard to be in shape. Choose your hard. It's hard to build a business. It's hard to work for somebody. Choose your hard. It's hard to eat healthy. It's hard to eat shitty. Choose your hard. Right. So when I changed my mindset to, you know, I don't want to be skinny. I want to be powerful. I don't want to be super duper fit. I want to not be in pain. You know, so really thinking about what is it that it's going to take. There's some days where I can walk 8 miles and I'm good to go. And then there's some days where I go, all right, it's 1.4 mile to the ice cream shop and 1.4 mile home. And I'm going to
Yeah.
scroll TikTok the entire time I'm walking there and the entire time I'm walking home. But by golly, I got out there and I did it.
Yeah. And that's kind of like an accommodation that you make for yourself based on your energy and based on your needs.
Yeah.
And so it's thinking about what is the goal. If the goal is to walk,
The goal is to walk.
regardless of if you're scrolling TikTok, listening to a podcast, doing nothing, and just letting yourself be present.
Yeah.
And not diving into the black and white, all or nothing thinking.
Yes.
That was always my challenge, where I expected perfectionism all the time. And now I understand that perfectionism is just another form of procrastination and rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which we're very obviously prone to having. Deep sigh, lots of work around that. When I'm thinking about you walking and that journey that you've made with that, and the whole like energy optimization, a lot of things I hear from people in the neurodivergent community is, I don't know what my body needs.
Yeah.
And you hit on it with that disconnect. So what would you tell people that they could do if they feel that way? There's like a disconnect between like their mind and their body.
Yeah. I would tell them to look into somatic practices, right?
Okay.
So we know that trauma gets stored in the body improperly, right? So if you think about, the best example that somebody used is the gazelle in the wild. The gazelle in the wild that's being chased by the cheetah passes out and plays dead, and the cheetah loses interest, goes away, and then the gazelle shakes uncontrollably for a portion of time and then it's able to get up and go because it moved through the entire process of fight or flight, fawn or freeze, and let it leave the body, so it didn't get stored improperly where it's going to be a trigger moving forward, right? So if we think about our bodies, especially as ADHDers, we're so much more physical than a neurotypical person, right? Because our neurotype is out here to be the wild hunter, gatherer, explorer. I'll do it. I'll check it out. I'll go. I'll come back. I'll report. La, 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 la. Don't tell me to sit down. I don't want to. If we really embrace that and say, okay, well, I don't have to run a marathon, but a couple miles would be really nice to get out there and, into the world. We have to think about, what does my body need? So trampoline work, right? We all know that I love a rebounder. If you follow me on TikTok or Instagram, you see me on my little trampoline all the time. And it's not like I'm out there jumping really big. A lot of the times I'm just out there at 5 p.m. when I'm rounding out my work day, and I'm just sort of dancing around, moving on it. And it's just extra wiggles, because it's not a firm ground. Yeah. I love that little surfboard thing that you have. I want one of those so bad. Christmas is coming.
For anybody who's listening to this who can't see it, I have a little surfboard type thing. I have it on my Amazon storefront, but it basically is kind of like a surfboard that you can wobble on and have just gentle movement while you're standing at your standing desk.
Yeah.
And it's got texture on it. So if I want to stand on it without shoes, it kind of gives me that stimulation too as an ADHDer. So but I love when you do post those videos or B-roll of you.
Trampoline videos are the best. Everybody loves it. We got to take it back from those terrible men in the 90s that tried to ruin women on trampolines. Anyways, let's not get off topic. So really, the somatic practices are so important because we know that traditional talk therapy is not that fantastic for a neurodivergent person because we've already thought it out. I've already figured out that I'm fucked up because my parents were dickheads. I know that part. I get it. I know where my trauma's from and what it's from and that sort of thing. I have to work it through my body so it no longer is affecting me in my brain.
Yeah.
So looking into somatic practices is really, really important. Developing some kind of journaling, writing it down practice. I am looking at 3 different notebooks in front of me right now, and I do a left side, right side sort of thing. So the left side of my notebook is just stuff written all over the place, circled, starred, all that sort of stuff. It's all the things that come up. And then the right side is a clear outline of what I'm doing today or what I'm brainstorming, all that sort of stuff. So like while I'm working through a new project idea and I get an idea that I want to think about too, that goes on the left side where we're going to come back to it.
Yeah.
Right. So really thinking about how can I alleviate the challenges in my executive function. There's 8 different executive functions. I'm not going to list them all out, but everything from emotional regulation to working memory. And
Right.
that's the challenge for a neurodivergent, is the executive function. So taking pressure off your working memory. So
Yeah.
like I had a client the other day say to me, she's halfway through the Mindset Mastery Launchpad program, and she goes, I don't want to sound conceited. And I said, please do. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
it. And she said, I forgot how smart I am. And I said, tell me more. She said, I have so many great ideas, but they just will vanish into the ether. But now that I'm writing them down, I can come back to them. And I was like, yeah, we don't have to
Oh,
remember everything.
I'm tearing up. That's beautiful.
Right?
And
Like,
that's essentially why we do the work we do, though, right?
yes.
As coaches for people who are neurospicy,
Yeah.
is that we people who this is an ADHD stat, we're corrected 20,000 times more often than our neurotypical peers growing up.
Yeah.
That's parents, that's pastors, that's coaches, that's teachers, that's friends, adults around us, and even other kids redirect us and tell us we're wrong or something. And so we start paralyzing and get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And to hear somebody stop and reflect,
Yeah.
to say, I forgot how smart I was.
Yep.
And how thoughtful. And it's like giving yourself permission to put things in place to support your executive functioning can really skyrocket you.
Yep. And accommodations. Here's the thing about accommodations.
Yeah.
They're going to work forever as long as you use them, but you're not going to get to a place where you don't need them.
That's right. And that is really hard for people who are going through the grieving process of diagnosis, self-diagnosis, or like a diagnostician. They are under the impression sometimes, it's like, which is a very neurotypical approach, right?
Very.
Where I'm putting this in place, it should be good forever.
Yep.
And I'll get to a place where it's no longer. And even in school systems, the goal sometimes is to get people off accommodations. And I'm like, nope, that's not equitable.
No.
That's just not equitable.
Yeah.
They may not need it as much, but there might be a day where it's like, yeah, they need it today because their executive functioning is worse today. Their symptoms are worse today. Just because yesterday was a great day doesn't mean that tomorrow they won't come in with low energy.
In fact, you can almost promise if yesterday was a great day, today's going to be a low energy day.
Oof. Yes. Preach that. Like energy management for me was the big one. Accommodations, setting accommodations for myself.
Yep.
Wrapping my mind around how habits are critical and keeping them so they're not too stagnant while also not rigid.
Yeah.
Was a fine balance, and I'm finally there. And of course I have weeks where I fall off the wagon, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, and I tell my clients this too. I was like, routines are a roadmap. They get us back on track.
Absolutely.
That is the goal. They don't need to be like a rigid system that you're here like, oh, it's all or not. It's like, no, it's like, I'm feeling lost. Oh, I haven't done my routines in a week.
Yep. And really figuring out how to get into your flow state. So I like to use Kristina with the blue hair, my business partner at the NeuroSpicy Academy, as an example.
Yeah.
Kristina loves the beginning of a project. She loves coming up with all the ideas and like all that stuff, where I'm like, I like putting it into action. I like seeing the thing come to fruition. Right. So she will get super duper excited about all the beginning stages and then be disinterested in the full carry out. Whereas I don't get super excited in the beginning. I like the idea of like, yeah, let's come up with some ideas and whatnot. But I get excited about how we're going to make this the thing. How are we going to do this physical thing? So when you put us together, we're freaking perfect together. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. We're perfect together. Right. And understanding like where a few years ago, before we understood how each other worked, it would have been, I thought that I needed to be as excited as her in the beginning. And she would have thought she needed to be as excited as me in the end. And we wouldn't have been able to get anything done because we would have been burned out and tired the whole time. Right. She can knock out blogs and emails and stuff like this. Whereas I can go live and create TikTok videos all freaking day. And to write something, I have to use ChatGPT and this and this and this because my working memory will just blank out on me mid-sentence while I'm trying to write an email.
Yeah.
So really understanding, she can knock out 10 emails and schedule all of them. And I can create a plan for the emails that I do want to write over the next 10 days and just write them over the next 10 days.
Right. And that's I love that you shared that, because so many people have this view of ADHD looks this one way.
Yeah.
And even like people who are educated about what inattentive or ADHD looks like in women, or AFABs, whatever. And I think that's a really good example of how our skills and ADHD attention and executive dysfunction manifest so differently.
They really do. Because you and I both have dyslexia.
Yeah.
But we have different challenges and different strengths with our dyslexia. I know I send you videos about dyslexia all the time. I'm like, oh my God, did you know we can do this? You know we can do this? But like, I can walk into a room and tell that you move the furniture an inch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can tell it's off. I can tell it's different.
Our spatial skills are very different, but I still run into stuff because ADHD, but our spatial skills are really good. A lot of engineers have dyslexia. A lot of people who are working in different type of STEM fields, especially.
We're big picture people, but the details, like how many times do I send an email that doesn't actually have a link in it, but it says click the link here, and I forgot to put the link in.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Well, I don't want to reread it 9,000 times. I just want to send it and think it's good enough, close enough. There we go. Done is better than perfect.
Right. Yeah. I get that. So I've got some end of conversation questions for you.
Okay.
What is your current food hyperfixation?
Oof, that's a good one. Seeds. I am in seed cycling right now to help my menstruation phases and whatnot. So seed cycling is doing for the first 2 weeks, or the first half of your cycle, you do sesame and pumpkin, or no, it's pumpkin and flax for the first part, and then it's sesame and sunflower for the second half to try and regulate my cycle, because it's challenged with my endometriosis and my PMDD and my PCOS. So I am living for my seeds that I have over there in my little snack station, because I could just take a spoonful or two of them and then head out on a walk, or take a spoonful of them while I'm making lunch because I forgot that I was hungry or didn't realize I was hungry until it was too late and I had the shakes. So seeds are my current hyper focus.
Cool. What about your current support drink that you have?
Diet soda, either Fresca or Diet Dr. Pepper, depending on what time of day it is, because Fresca doesn't have caffeine and Diet Dr. Pepper does.
So Diet Dr. Pepper is not a late in the day activity.
Not a late in the day activity.
Okay. Morning or night person?
Morning.
Okay. Has that been like that your whole life?
Yes. When I wake up, I'm awake. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. You can talk to me. We can do the things. Let's go. But when I'm sleepy and it's nighttime, please leave me alone.
Fair. If people would like to learn more about the work you do, what would you, and who you work with, and I am here to say, like, Melanie was wonderful for mindset, business development, understanding how to set up systems for myself at home, like in my space, as well as in my business. So it's like thinking about stuff like that. If you're interested in what she can do for you, where could people find out more information?
You can check out my website, mindsetmelanie.com, and you can follow me on social media. I am Melanie Fixes Mindsets on TikTok, because my first account, that was Mindset Melanie, got banned. We won't go into it, but it was traumatic. And Instagram, Mindset Melanie, and YouTube. Go check out my YouTube channel as well, which is Mindset Melanie Branch. They're all linked on TikTok, though. TikTok is the fun hub. Let's all be honest. TikTok is the best place.
The main station.
Yes.
Yeah. But website was what again?
Mindsetmelanie.com.
Mindsetmelanie.com. Well, thank you so much for being on with me today. And as I said, it's also been wonderful working with you. And thank you for being my coach.
Oh, no, thank you for being such a fantastic star student and pupil. And thank you for having me on. It's been fantastic.
Thanks.